You won't believe what Tom Bower just uncovered. It's the kind of revelation that makes you stop breathing for a second because it isn't just scandal, it's tragedy disguised as truth. Behind Prince Harry's long-rumored battle with drugs lies something darker, something that didn't grow in isolation. Bower claims Meghan Markle wasn't just a bystander, she might have been a subtle part of the fog that swallowed him whole, even learned how to bend that fog to her own advantage. He paints a picture no one expected. Not the reckless young prince people laughed about, but a man quietly chained to his habits for decades and a woman who allegedly knew exactly how to pull the strings when his world blurred. It's not just about addiction, it's about control, influence, and a prince who, from the very beginning, might never have stood a chance. Imagine this, a 13-year-old boy, barely able to understand grief or fame, already slipping into something that would haunt him for most of his life. That's where it began, according to whispers from those who knew him then. They say Harry's drug use didn't suddenly explode in adulthood, it crept in quietly, like a shadow that stretched longer as the years passed. What started as curiosity turned into something far more consuming, not a teenage phase, but a 25-year dependency. Just think of that number, 25 years. It means he spent more time inside that fog than outside it. Those habits shaped the way he reacted to pain, how he trusted people, how he remembered his own life. Because when a substance stays that long, it doesn't just sit quietly in the corner. It seeps into everything, your emotions, your choices, even your sense of truth. And that's the man Meghan Markle met. Vulnerable, directionless, searching for something to hold on to. Now, fast forward to Montecito, bright skies, locked gates, perfect lawns hiding the chaos inside. According to Bower's sources, the smoke didn't vanish with adulthood. If anything, it thickened. People close to him insist he still smokes weed almost every single day. And daily use isn't just a habit, it's a haze. It slows your thoughts, blurs your reality, and isolates you inside your own head. The walls start to close in, and every shadow begins to look like a threat. Inside that mansion, Bower says, the air itself felt heavy. The fog wasn't just literal, it was emotional, mental. It wrapped itself around Harry's thoughts like an invisible cage. And when you're already fragile, that kind of routine doesn't calm you, it chains you. It binds you to fears, to doubts, and to whoever holds your hand the tightest. According to Bower, that haze didn't just dull Harry's senses, it blurred his entire judgment. It made him easy to guide, easy to believe. And the question that keeps echoing is chilling. If he was lost inside that fog, who was leading him through it? Before Meghan, Harry was already struggling, but something else about him stood out. Reports claim that when he took his entrance exam for Sandhurst, the elite military academy, his writing level tested at that of a 13-year-old, though he was 20. That isn't an insult, it's a clue. It shows he's always had trouble expressing himself, understanding manipulation when it's subtle, or piecing together complex motives. So when you read his memoir Spare, those poetic sentences, those dramatic memories, remember this: they weren't his words, they were crafted, ghost-written. Rebuilt from broken recollections and guided influence. He didn't have diaries or notes, just fragments, and those fragments were stitched together by someone else's design. That's where the tragedy sharpens. A man with a fragile memory and clouded mind became the perfect vessel for another person's narrative. Someone who understood how influence works like art. Someone who knew exactly how to turn emotion into power. And that's where Meghan enters the frame. Real influence doesn't need a crown or palace guards. It needs timing. It needs the right words at the right moment whispered into the right ear. According to sources close to the couple, Meghan became exactly that for Harry, a master of emotional guidance. He was already softened by addiction, desperate for direction, and she allegedly knew how to offer it not gently but precisely. She didn't just stand by him, she directed him. Insiders claim she fed him stories and interpretations that made him doubt everyone else, his friends, his family, even his own memory. Suddenly, the people who once cared for him were recast as villains. Every disagreement turned into betrayal, every concern into attack. And once you believe someone's version of reality over your own, you're no longer independent. You're guided, controlled. Harry's voice, weakened by years of confusion, slowly began to sound more and more like hers. The interviews, the accusations, the dramatic confessions, they all carried that same righteousness, that same "we're fighting the world" energy. But was it really his conviction, or was it borrowed certainty from the woman beside him? To understand that influence, you have to know where Meghan came from. Her story, according to investigators and people who've observed her closely, starts in a home filled with chaos. Bauer's research describes parents who both showed narcissistic traits again, not as an insult, but as explanation. Imagine growing up in a house where every day is a performance, where affection disappears and reappears depending on who wins the argument. A place where a little girl learns that love must be earned or controlled. That's the environment that formed her. Her mother, Doria Ragland, was unpredictable. Her father, Thomas Markle, tried to make up for it by overindulging her praise, gifts, endless attention. That mix, psychologists say, can teach a child one dangerous lesson. If you don't control everything around you, you'll be destroyed by it. So control becomes survival. Emotion becomes a weapon. People become pieces on a board. That mindset doesn't vanish when you grow up. It becomes the foundation of who you are. But Meghan's story turns darker still. The biggest wound wasn't the chaos, it was the absence. Her mother vanished from her life for 10 years. 10 years of silence. 10 years without explanation. A child can't process that. She just learns that love disappears without warning. According to what Bauer dug up, Doria's disappearance might not have been simple. There are whispers, prison time with sealed records, child services involvement, maybe even connections to dangerous people. No one outside a tight circle knows the truth, and every attempt to find official documents leads to dead ends. But one thing's certain, a mother doesn't vanish for a decade unless something serious happened. When Doria came back, the damage was already permanent. Meghan had grown up learning that control was safety and that emotions could bend the world around her. That's the mindset she carried into adulthood and eventually into her marriage. So picture it. One person shaped by abandonment and control meets another shaped by addiction and emotional confusion. One needs dominance to feel secure. The other seeks guidance to feel safe. Together, they build a bond not from balance, but from dependence. Psychologists have a name for it, a shared fantasy. Two people creating the same illusion, feeding it until it becomes their entire world. Harry and Meghan, sources claim, live inside that kind of loop. She defines the world, and he believes it. Together, they reinforce every fear, every grievance, every imagined betrayal. It feels like love, but it's really confinement dressed as unity. And that's what makes Harry's situation so heartbreaking. He doesn't see it. He believes he's finally free, finally speaking his truth, but in reality, he's trapped inside someone else's version of it. Certainty without clarity, confidence without awareness. Because when drugs and emotional manipulation combine, the victim doesn't feel enslaved, they feel understood, and that's what's so dangerous. Now we reach the part that feels almost cinematic. Imagine Montecito again. The sun sliding behind the hills, the glass walls of their mansion glowing gold. Inside, silence. A man sitting alone, staring at nothing. A prince who once carried the admiration of millions now sits under the weight of confusion he can't even name. Next to him, Meghan, calm, composed, beautiful, but unreadable. A woman molded by her own storms, now standing beside a man drowning in his. Together, they've built a life that looks perfect from the outside: interviews, Netflix deals, glamorous appearances, but inside, it's all fog and reflection. A house made of smoke, and the thing about smoke is, it doesn't hold forever. Tom Bauer warns that the cracks are already showing. The more they speak, the more inconsistencies appear. The world is beginning to see what the fog tried to hide, that this isn't a fairy tale at all, but a long, slow unraveling of two damaged people locked inside the same illusion. It's tragic, really. Harry thinks he's rewriting his past, finding his voice, protecting his family. But what he doesn't realize is that in chasing that idea of truth, he may be losing the last real thing he has: clarity. And when clarity is gone, anything can happen next. So picture the ending, not explosive, not loud, just the quiet hum of a house trembling under its own secrets. The wind outside starts to rise. The fog begins to thin. And sooner or later, everything built on illusion must face the air of truth. Because no matter how carefully you hide it, smoke can't stay still forever. One shift, one gust, one moment of honesty, and suddenly, everything becomes visible. And when that happens, the world will finally see what's been hidden all along. And the story doesn't stop there, it deepens, like fog thickening over calm water before the storm finally hits. Behind the smiles and the interviews, there's tension in that Montecito air. People close to them say you can feel it, that silence that isn't peaceful but charged, like both of them know something's cracking, but no one dares name it. Because once you build a world on illusion, maintaining it takes everything you've got. Harry, they say, clings to his routines, the quiet mornings, the constant smoke, the workouts that never seem to clear his head. He tells himself he's in control now, free from the palace walls, but even his freedom feels scripted. Every word, every appearance, every documentary scene seems rehearsed, polished, to fit a narrative that's supposed to sound brave, but instead feels defensive. And Meghan? She's the calm center of the storm. Every move precise, every expression calculated to photograph well. She speaks softly, but her silence speaks louder. People whisper that she knows the story slipping away from her grasp, that the world isn't buying the fairy tale the way it used to. But she's not the kind of woman who lets go. Control has been her language since childhood, and losing that would feel like drowning. Meanwhile, Harry still believes he's standing for truth. He repeats phrases he's been told, sentences that sound strong but empty when you look closer. He doesn't see how far he's drifted. The fog is too thick. And the saddest part? The man who once stood shoulder to shoulder with his brother now barely remembers what family even feels like. Tom Bower's revelations aren't just shocking, they're tragic. Because behind all the royal drama and media chaos lies something painfully human. Two broken souls trying to heal each other and instead tearing themselves apart. Meghan's need for control meets Harry's need for guidance. And together, they feed a cycle that keeps spinning faster. Somewhere in that golden California home, behind the carefully curated smiles, there's a man who still thinks he's rewriting his destiny. But when your pen is guided by someone else's hand, you're not writing your story, you're living theirs. And when the smoke finally clears, when the truth can't hide anymore, the world will see not a rebel prince and his misunderstood wife, but two lost hearts swallowed by the fog they created together.